All right, joining me now is the national co-chair of the Biden campaign, Senator Chris Coons of Delaware. Senator Coons, welcome back to Meet the Press.
Great to be on with you again, Chair.
Let me start with the Hunter Biden situation. And I understand that, you believe this is all being emphasized due to politics that the House Republicans are doing. Let me ask you this. Do you think it would behoove the president for him to come out and say, hey, I had no business dealings with my son. My son's issues are my son's issues. Do you think he needs to say that more directly? Because there's a lot of people that believe something else went happen here.
Well, let's be clear about that point, Chuck. There's been a 5-year investigation, 5 years, by a Trump-appointed U.S. attorney. This investigation started during the Trump administration, and they've come forward with not one shred of evidence tying President Biden to any of this. I am encouraged that, in sharp contrast to President Trump, you've just detailed his mountain of legal problems, where President Trump is fighting and pushing back and obstructing. Hunter Biden's come forward, taken responsibility, paid his late taxes. As you just discussed with Chuck Rosenberg, I think the hiccup in the Delaware District Courthouse will get ironed out pretty quickly. And I don't think President Biden needs to say anything more than he has.
House Republicans are going to accuse him.
They are.
They're going to make the accusation.
They're going to accuse him of all sorts of stuff.
Whether they have the evidence or not.
Correct.
The question, and they may have an information ecosystem that helps amplify it to a point where you don't think he needs to just direct, hey, despite what you hear, just so you know, I don't do business with my son or my brother.
I think he's been perfectly clear. Okay. And I think, frankly, what makes the American people turn towards President Biden in the re-election campaign is that he has spent his time focusing on what they're concerned about, not relitigating the 2020 election, not focused on grievance politics, as you showed in Erie last night. President Biden has delivered on an astonishing array of things that Trump promised to do, but Biden has actually done.
Impeachment was actually on the president's mind while he was in Maine talking about the economy. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Republicans may have to find something else to criticize me for. Now that inflation is coming down, maybe they'll decide to impeach me because it's coming down.
You think politically impeachment would help Biden? You agree with him? He seems to think so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you look back at Bill Clinton and the experience of the impeachment, ultimately it did. Frankly, I think President Biden has an incredibly strong record to run on. And there was great economic news last week that reinforced that the ground is shifting in his direction in terms of economic growth, unemployment. 3/4 of Americans showed in a recent poll they feel better about their economic condition. Consumer confidence is the highest it's been in years. So the ground is moving in his direction. But if the Republicans want a sharp contrast that Joe Biden's delivering on infrastructure, on high-quality manufacturing, on making us stronger in the world stage, and they want to engage in political theater, an impeachment inquiry is probably the best thing they could do to hurt their chances next fall.
You know, what's legal in this town is sometimes very frustrating.
Right.
You have Hunter Biden that clearly was profiting off his last name. You have Jared Kushner. You've had members of Trump's family profiting off of their access to government. Should there be a code of conduct? Should Congress, look, you've got controversies with the Supreme Court. Is it time for a code of conduct for Supreme Court justices and throw in presidential family members? You know, sons and daughters of sitting presidents, should they have their own code of conduct? Should Congress try to address this?
It's an interesting question that I haven't engaged with before. We have been engaging on trying to get the Supreme Court to adopt a code of ethics. As you referenced, they are the only members of the entire federal judiciary not covered by a code of ethics. Members of Congress have to fully disclose their assets, their stock holdings, their dealings, and those of their
Should presidential
spouses
family members be a separate, perhaps come under a little additional scrutiny?
That may be worth looking at because, frankly, as you referenced, Jared Kushner wasn't just a private citizen. He worked in the White House and engaged in economic...
No, if you're outraged about Hunter Biden, you should be outraged about Jared Kushner. To me, it's not like, you could, it's hard to...
You can't pick and choose.
You can't pick and choose. Congressman Dean Phillips, Democrat from Minnesota, is openly now out there saying he thinks there should be a Democratic contest. By the way, he's against the no labels idea, but he thinks that the president's too old to be running again. And he thinks this needs to be an active debate inside the Democratic Party. What say you?
Just look at the endorsements President Biden is getting earlier in the cycle, more broadly than ever before. Look, we've had contested primaries with sitting presidents. You've never seen a sitting president have as weak a field of potential opponents, Marianne Williamson, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as he has now. And the endorsements President Biden has earned from the building trades, from climate activists, from reproductive rights activists. The base of the Democratic Party, as broadly as I've ever seen in my life, is endorsing President Biden because of what he's gotten done.
Are you at all, look, RFK Jr. is kind of a clown show, and I think a lot of people sort of see that, and I don't think it's a real threat. But Dean Phillips is a pretty serious member of Congress, maybe unknown. If he's sitting there on that ballot in New Hampshire, that doesn't have you nervous?
It doesn't have me nervous, frankly. President Biden has the strongest record of legislative accomplishment since LBJ, and you're beginning to see the impact. 13 million jobs created by the private sector, 800,000 good manufacturing jobs, 35,000 infrastructure projects out there in the country. Dean Phillips can't cite anything like that. President Biden has made us stronger on the world stage. The Vilnius summit showed his agility, his capabilities, the strength with which he's helped rally NATO to the defense of Ukraine, and the strength with which he's delivered on things Trump promised, like rebuilding infrastructure, cutting prescription drug prices, where Biden has delivered, gives him an incredible record to run on.
I talk to a lot of our NBC affiliates in preparing for the Sunday show every week. Number one question they asked me was about age. You know, how old is too old to serve? The Mitch McConnell thing was very hard to watch. I think we're all hopeful that that's something that's not going to happen again for him. But is it time to consider, we have age minimums in the Constitution that frankly look kind of absurd in hindsight. Should there be a constitutional amendment for an age maximum, whether 75 or 80, to apply to the entire federal government for political appointees or elected officials?
Look, I think the best test of whether or not someone is really capable of fulfilling their constitutional duty is an election. Having
6 years,
stand
though.
in front
And
of
a
an
senator,
election,
it's 6 years. A lot can happen when you're in 6-year period in your health, especially when you're in your late 70s or early 80s.
That's right. I mean, I don't disagree. Look, I talked to Minority Leader McConnell after the incident this week where he froze in a TV interview. He seemed fine.
You
We
confident in
spoke
him?
again
Do
the
you
next
feel like
morning.
he's going to be running the show here?
I feel like he's going to continue to be the Republican leader through the rest of this Congress. And what happens after that, I don't know.
Senator Chris Coons, Democrat from Delaware, good to see you.
Thank you, Jack.
Thanks for coming out and sharing your perspective.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.